the Alberta Council of Technologies presents feature keynote Ian Hill, May 15th at 2:50 p.m. Watch live at bestofanalytics.com. Humanitarian, award-winning business leader, and social innovator, these are some of the words that are often used when referring to Ian Hill. Whether running a multi-million-dollar business with over 1,000 employees, engaging in innovative venture capital projects, spearheading first-of-their-kind, life-changing community projects, Ian Hill has been recognized for being one of North America's foremost agents of change. Today, Ian is sought out by business and government entities large and small to be a catalyst to positive change, improving employee productivity and organizational effectiveness. This extends to increasing the profitability and the social impact of corporations and public entities. Hundreds of organizations and thousands of individuals have benefited from Ian's leadership programming. In Alberta, Ian has assisted some 75 communities through his programs, philanthropy, and efforts.
Earlier in a panel discussion, we were looking at why is it that we can have all these parts that we need in Alberta and still we haven't quite got the results that we want, particularly in the technology area. And certainly an ingredient that we recognize as being an area for improvement is leadership. And I have a suspicion that Ian's going to have something to say about that.
So it's rare that I have an opportunity to talk in a technology setting. But I do appreciate being invited to chat. You are in a very unique situation here in Alberta. And I know Alberta. I've been in some 78 Albertan communities over the last 5 years through our philanthropic giving of playgrounds and skate parks and in some business endeavors and through some investing because like the rest of the world, we've invested in oil and gas. Woo! And I spent a lot of time in Fort McMurray. So I know a little bit about Alberta. And I know a little bit about doing things that have never been done before. I've been fortunate enough to be involved in 7 things that have never been done before. And 5 times we won and 2 times we lost. And that'll get you in the playoffs, I guess. And so I know a little bit about this. And so when Perry and a lady named Yvonne said, "Would you come?" I said, "I would." And they said, "Well, we don't have anything to pay you. We can't pay you. We don't want to pay you." And I said, "Well, I don't care. I don't speak for money anyway. So I just think there's something that people need to hear." Let me preface those comments by saying that I'm not the sharpest pencil in the box or the brightest bulb in the chandelier. All of you in this room are more educated than I ever was. People always ask me if I went to university, and I say, yes, I did. I walk through there on my way to work every day. When I was in the venture capital business, I was the rainmaker. I wasn't the smart guy, I just was the investor guy. I went and got the money. The street smarts and the insight and the intuition helped with that. But you're smarter than me. But I know a little bit about this thing called doing something that's never been done before. You have an opportunity to do something very, very special. I said a year ago, and I'll say it again today, that you here in Alberta have the opportunity to create the Athens of the 21st century. Athens was the greatest city-state in the history of mankind. It was one of the greatest communities ever known to man. And they did things that resonate throughout the history to today. Birthplace of democracy, arts and culture, and the like. You have the opportunity to do the same thing here in Alberta. Why? 1, because you have a phenomenal economic engine. Yes, it's resource-based, but all of that cash that's being kicked off creates a tremendous opportunity to do the kind of things that you're talking about. Tremendous opportunity to diversify and create a robust economy. Secondly, there's somebody from every country on the planet in this province. I was in a building the other day that there was somebody from every country on the planet in the building. And for whatever reason, there's incredible talent that's come to Alberta. And then finally, there's a spirit in Alberta. Anybody ever been to Fort Chip? Has anybody been to Fort Chip? I've been to Fort Chip. I've been there numerous times. And all you have to do is go to Fort Chipewyan, and you'll see the spirit that is Alberta. That rugged individualism, the find a way, make a way attitude. Or have you ever talked to a beet farmer from Eastern Europe who came in here 50 years ago and started his beet farm in southeastern Alberta? Or have you ever been to Pincher Creek and the wind alone? How could you live there? But it's a phenomenal community with people that understand how to find a way and make a way. Those four things combined, the DNA of Alberta, an incredible economy right now, they're kicking off a lot of cash, phenomenal talent, and people from all over the world. Very similar to Athens, the crossroads of society. Well, what will you do with that? History will judge you, all of you Albertans. History will judge what you do with that opportunity. History will judge how you take it, how you see it, how you seize it. History will judge whether you are able to diversify. History will judge. And you know what it will absolutely come back down to? Leadership, as Stuart said a moment ago. And it will come down to your capacity, if you want to create an attitudinal shift within this Albertan community, if you want to create an attitudinal shift towards what it is you're attempting to do, it'll be about leadership. Peter F. Drucker said that every couple hundred years in Western history, society rearranges itself. And the society that the grandparents knew is completely different than the society the grandchildren know. He called it a time of transformation. How many of you agree with me we're in a time of transformation? In society as a whole. There's nobody that knows more about it than probably you. Those of you that are involved in analytics, those of you that are involved in data, those of you that are involved in technology, you understand that we're in a time of transformation. But the skills and abilities and competencies to win the battle behind you will not be the skills and abilities and competencies that are necessary to win the battle before you. I think you're on a noble and honorable mission. I think it's a vital mission to all Albertans and all Canadians. I think you must diversify the economy. I think you must come up with ways to come up with new economy and new opportunity. But if you don't know how to lead, you will fail like so many before you. If you don't know how to engage and tap into the collective intelligence of all stakeholders, if you don't know how to create an attitudinal shift amongst the highest leader and John Q. Public, I don't know how many entrepreneurs that I sat with at the table, and they told me the value of their technology, the value of this, and the value of their company, and the value, and I look them straight in the eye and say, your company ain't worth crap. How many of you remember that VC guy before? Your company isn't worth crap, man. And you know why? Because you're not a good leader. I'll be happy to invest in your company if you'll step aside and let me get a professional CEO that can scale this thing. How many of you ever heard that conversation? And if the guy had a half a brain in his head, he'd realize that owning 10% of the Hilton Corporation was better than owning 100% of the Ho-Hum Motel. Because leadership is the key. You can have the greatest technology, you can have the greatest model, you can have the greatest idea in the history of mankind, but if you don't know how to lead, forget it. So then what does it take to do things that have never been done before? What does it take, like the Italian philosopher when he said, there's nothing more difficult to take in hand, more perilous to attempt, and more uncertain in its success than to take the lead in the introduction of a new order of things. You are attempting to introduce a new order of things. You are attempting to introduce a new order of things. And you are attempting to introduce a new order of things. And you're attempting to do it during a time of transformation, which even makes it more difficult. So then what have I found and what have I researched on? What does it take to change things? First of all, you better have the capacity and ability to see tomorrow being better than yesterday. And you better be able to effectively communicate the why in that. John Q. Public here in Alberta doesn't even think there is a problem. How many of you agree with that? Because there's no direst need. So can you articulate the impact of the why? So many of these conferences, we talk about the how. We talk about how to do this and how to do that. But can any of you stand up and credibly and effectively and passionately evangelize the message of why this is so critical, why this is so important, and the relevance, impact, and the quality of life that it could bring? Why diversifying the economy is in every single person's best interest, that it's almost a moral issue? Can you passionately do that? Because that's what it will take to penetrate the 17,000 media impressions that an Albertan is hit with every month. How many of you would concur? You're not going to be able to do a Facebook page, a Twitter account. You're not going to be able to do some email campaign. It's going to be a relational marketing strategy because that's what works in Alberta. A relational marketing strategy where we strategically identify the people of influence Then we set up what I call 100 cups of coffee, where we sit down and even if it takes 100 cups of coffee, we sit down and dialogue one-on-one with people and explain the why of the matter, the urgency of the matter. Do you have the capacity to see tomorrow being better than it was yesterday? And can you articulate that through all of the different conduits of communication that are available today? Yes, you better be effective in face-to-face communication. Yes, you better be able to engage the fact-based communicator. And yes, you better be able to utilize virtual communication. But ultimately, it will all be to build relationships. And I love these kind of conferences, and I love that we're broadcasting in Calgary. How cool is that? Hi, Calgary. How are you? It's good to see you. Thank you for coming. There's probably 9 of you there. There's 40 of us here. There's 50 of us watching total. I asked the guys in the back, I said, how's it going on Twitter? They're like, we're up 4,000%. I was like, you are? They're like, we're up 4,000%. Wow. We went from 8 to 28. Woo! Okay, so what? You start with who's in the room. Stop whining and complaining about who's not in the room. Self-selected early adopters, small groups of people, properly motivated, focused on a common goal, not caring who gets the credit, that's who changes the world. Small groups of people, properly motivated, focused on a common goal, not caring who gets the credit, that's who changes the world. It's never large groups of people who are only focused on themselves, who only care about themselves getting the credit. They never change the world. The efforts of Perry and all of the others to build this thing up and grow this thing. But now it's time to take it to the next concentric circle. And what is that next concentric circle? That's the relationship building that's necessary. I would challenge all of you in the room and all of you watching, make a list of the people of influence in the province of Alberta. Not the people of prominence. The people of influence. How many of you know there are a lot of people of prominence out there? We've become a narcissistic society that's only interested in our own self-promotion. That's not the kind of people I'm talking about. I'm talking about the 9 or 10 or 12 or 14 people that really make things go in your community or in the province as a whole. Make a list. Color code them red, yellow, green. Red, yellow, green. Yeah, totally against what we want to do, indifferent to what we want to do, green, but not for what we want to do, but not a champion. And then every one of you commit to meeting with one of them over the next 6 months. Over cups of coffee. Explaining the why of the matter. Explaining the value of the matter. Explaining the importance of the matter. Explaining the moral cause of the matter. How many of you agree with me that's the basic fundamentals of creating a network? How many of you agree with that? And how many of you agree with me that approach is going to work in today's Alberta better than some Facebook page? How many of you agree with that? But have you done it? I don't know if you've done it. If you haven't, then you don't understand what these changing times require. If you have an empty piece of paper or you got your iPad up, just put this in. Are the leadership approaches I'm using the ones the times require? Because if we're in a time of transformation, then the times require a different leadership approach. So today's leader has the ability and capacity to see tomorrow being better than it was yesterday and has an effective strategy for building relationships with people of influence. But that's just like being an entrepreneur. An entrepreneur has an effective strategy to identify the people of influence in the industry that he wants to penetrate and then go build a trusting relationship with those people of influence. The effective entrepreneur knows how to do that. This thing is funny, this being an agent of change. Do you believe in the depth of your heart that things will change? I know that sounds trite, but at some point it comes and it emanates from here. I talked with Perry for about 8 seconds, and I could see he has that. He has that deep, resounding belief of a vision, and it drives him to be almost annoying. How many? No, I'm just kidding. But you know what, Perry? Would you agree with me? It takes that drive. He just said it, nothing else. So that when he wakes up in the morning, when he goes to bed at night, he's consumed. But that's what it takes to overcome inertia. Any engineers in the room? Who's an engineer? Inertia, the law of motion. It says that a thing in place tends to stay in place. It says a thing on a certain trajectory tends to stay on that trajectory unless a force of greater strength comes into play. Well, don't you think there's some inertia in play in Alberta today? There's some inertia in play. So how do you think you're going to overcome the inertia? Some jingoistic web video? You think you're going to overcome it with some trite phraseology? You're not going to overcome inertia with that. You're only going to overcome inertia with a relational strategy where passion and energy and moral call to action is in play. History will judge you. There is no doubt in my mind. History will judge what happens here in this province. And you have an opportunity to be on the leading edge of ensuring that history judges you favorably. So do you have the capacity to see tomorrow being better than it was yesterday? Secondly, are you a systems thinker? Are you a process thinker? Not are you systematic in your thinking, but are you a big picture, holistic systems thinker? Do you see the symbiotic relationship? You all that analyze things, all of you that pick apart data, can you articulate how it all comes together to impact our society? Can you see the big picture? Archimedes said this. Archimedes said, "Give me a place to stand and I will move the world." And on the surface, you think that that's some trite, motivational little phraseology. It wasn't that at all. What Archimedes was saying was, if I have a fulcrum and if I have a lever big enough, I can move just about anything. When he took the compound pulley and utilized it to pull a boat into shore that the day before took 10 men to pull in, he had created 2 force multipliers. Analytics is a force multiplier. How many of you would concur with that? It allows us to do more with less. It allows us to be more efficient and more effective. But are you attacking that in a systems mindset and saying, wow, what we have could actually make a significant impact in people's daily lives? What we have and what we do could actually make a significant impact in a little girl's quality of life, or in that single mom's quality of life, or in that senior's quality of life. That what we do has a significant value for every citizen from cradle to grave. Are you a systems thinker? Or are you just looking at your little sliver of the system? And your little data that you analyze, or your little startup company of 3, and wondering how you're going to put food in the fridge. Every entrepreneur that I ever met was able to see the big picture, and was able to articulate, she or he was able to articulate how that thing had some redeeming value beyond what was obvious. Systems. And then finally, I think if you're going to shift attitudes, if you're going to do things that have never been done before, you're a catalyst for responsibility. All those playgrounds. Well, let me back up for a second. How many of you have figured it out? I wasn't born in Canada. How many of you figured that out already? Yeah. The Chubby Brown Man was not born in Canada. Chubby Brown Man was born in Iran. I always say Iran. I was born in Iran. I was adopted as an infant baby and brought to the States. And then in the States, I was challenged in my childhood. And eventually I worked my way to Canada. And now, as I was affectionately called the other day by a lieutenant governor here in the country, an adopted son of Canada. I was raised in the States, but it's been my Canadian experience that's changed me as a man. I'm a better man because of Canada. I'm a better dad. I'm a better husband. I'm a better man because of Canada. All those playgrounds that we give away across Canada, they honor fallen soldiers. Here in Alberta, we've honored a number of fallen heroes. Just outside of Edmonton, here in Leduc, we honored Jose Agustino, Constable Jose Agustino. Maybe you remember his name. He was killed by a transport truck right outside of Leduc. Last year, we honored Corporal Thornburg. Have you ever heard of Corporal Thornburg? Catalyst for responsibility. I don't understand where you're going with this, Ian. Why do you do that, Ian? Because I have a responsibility to give to the country that gave to me. I'm a better man because of this country. I've made a lot of money because of this country. So I have a responsibility to give back to the country. I have a responsibility to make it better than when I found it. If you want to make something great happen, if you want to do something that's never been done before, somehow you've got to get people to marshal. You've got to be able to take a lot of different people with a lot of different backgrounds, with a lot of different talents, experience, and interests, and marshal them towards a common goal. In today's environment, we're looking for leaders that are authentic. We're looking for leaders that are sincere. We are looking for leaders that are driven by something deeper than just profitability. How many of you would agree with that? Then they're a catalyst for responsibility. And they understand that there's more to life than just seeing how much money I have in my bank, because there's no U-Hauls going to heaven. So if you want to marshal human capital, you want to get people involved in your thing today, have a deeper redeeming value than just the bottom line. Because people are looking for something of meaning and of purpose. Let's let them be kids' projects. We're all volunteers. How in the world could we possibly be named a volunteer organization or nominated volunteer organization here? It doesn't make any sense. And I believe it's only because we understand we have to be catalysts for responsibility. Because I, within myself, don't have enough time, energy, or effort at my disposal to get done everything I need to get done. So I've got to be able to tap into other people. But they won't come and be a part of what I'm trying to do if they don't see some redeeming value today. So, can I see tomorrow being better than it was yesterday? And can I articulate in a relational way to marshal human capital? Am I a systems thinker, seeing how it all connects and being able to articulate the redeeming value of what I do? And then finally, is there some deeper purpose that I can articulate so that the human capital will coalesce around what I'm attempting? Those are some basic fundamentals. I only had 18, 19 minutes. But I'm going to leave you with 5 questions that I challenge you to ask yourself. 5 questions and I really want you to write them down. Because this is the essence of the leadership approach that I think will be successful today. Question number 1. What will be my greatest contribution to my family? Why is my family lucky to have me as the dad or as the mom? What will be my redeeming contribution to my kids? Because ultimately, if I want to make a difference in society, it'll be because of the way I raise my family. Secondly, what will be my greatest contribution to those that I lead? All of us lead somebody in this room. We all lead somebody. All of us in this room lead somebody. So what will be my greatest contribution to those that I've led? Question number 3. What will be my greatest contribution to those that I've served? Those around me, my peers, my neighbors. Question number 4. What will be my greatest contribution to my organization? Whether it's my little startup, the governmental entity that I work for, this alliance, what will be my greatest contribution to my organization? In a day and age where we are walking around saying, you're lucky to have me, what will be my greatest contribution to my organization? And then finally, and I think most importantly, what will be my greatest contribution to this society? You have an opportunity to do something incredibly special here in Alberta. And you specifically have an opportunity to be a standard bearer of differentiating yourself from a lot of other resource-based economies. People that are wise enough and smart enough to understand that we must differentiate and we must diversify. But people who are skilled enough, because that's self-evident, skilled enough to use the approaches necessary to marshal the human capital of a province, to not only understand, but act on the opportunity. See, you're just like the young entrepreneur who thinks they have something great, and you do. You're right. We need to diversify. You're right. But are you wise enough to understand how to build the capacity around that? That takes leadership. And it's not just Stuart and Perry and people like that. It's all of you that have a passion and an interest in it. It's all of you executing the leadership approaches necessary to create the attitudinal shift that will then be the definition of history. And people will point to Alberta and say, they did it right. They were the Athens of the 21st century. I think you can be that. Thank you for your time.
Join the conversation next year as more cities become data-driven. Become a community partner. Contact us at info@abctech.ca.